Hello everybody, this is Dave Fowler and you're watching EMGtv, and this is Touching Bass. Why bass? For me, when I was a teenager growing up in North Carolina, my parents sang at church and they always needed a bass player. They really only had a bass player and a piano player, but they could never find a bass player. So I kind of took it on myself to learn. I figured, well, it's only got 4 strings, so how hard can it be? And that's how I got started. The bass kind of actually chose me. And then at some point along the way there, I saw Kiss and it was just over. The most influential bassist to me personally of all time, there would have to be 2 of them for me because they're 2 very different players. It would have to be Jaco Pastorius because he single-handedly to me brought the bass to the forefront as far as a soloist and just his overall approach and how he played and his creativeness was unbelievable. And the other guy would have to be Stanley Clarke because Stanley took it to another place that Jaco didn't with all the funk playing and chording and things. Stanley took it elevated it to another level, in my opinion. But those 2 guys would be the most influential bassists of my lifetime. My #1 bass guitar that I've ever had in my life, I'm holding. This is a 1988 NS2 Kramer era USA Spectre. I wanted one of these because Sting played a white one on the Synchronicity tour. And I just liked the way that it looked. And little did I know it had EMGs in it at the time. But with the HasLab circuitry, I started looking for one and I wanted a white one because I felt like if Sting had a white one, then I had to have a white one. But what I did not know in this era was they only made 108 white ones. So they were pretty hard to find. It took me looking nationwide at every professional bass shop. You know, if you remember back in the late 80s and through the 90s, there was Third Bass in Denver and Bass Northwest in Seattle. There was all these pro bass specific shops. And the bass place in Arizona. And 2.5 years it took to find this bass before one came available because everybody that had them were holding on to them, I guess. Plus, with only 108 that existed from this era, a little difficult to find anyway. So what happened was Lee Miller finally called me 2.5 years into my search and said, "Dave, did you ever find a white Spectre?" "Nope." He said, "You still want one?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Well, this guy, Bobby Hornsby, I'll never forget his name, bought this one new from me and he's gonna come trade it in next week." And it just so happened, like in the next 10 to 12 days, I was traveling to Phoenix. So I just told Lee, I said, "Put it in the back, I'll take it no matter what it costs. I'm taking that bass." So I bought it, and little did I know, I got what I feel like is the holy grail of basses out of the deal. It was really, this has been a special instrument. And I never thought about it in these terms. You musicians that work for a living like I do, but somebody asked me one day, since '95, which is when I found this bass, it was 7 years old, a guy asked me one time, he says, "How much money do you think you've earned with that bass?" And I never thought about it in those terms. This bass has probably earned me over $500,000 easily, over time. But just goes to show you, you know, when you don't think about it in those terms, how much an instrument can be valued, you know. Okay, to me, the most iconic bass line that has just stuck with me for years is "Slow Ride" by Foghat. Fast forward many years, I was able to meet Nick Jameson, and Nick and I have become friends. Nick produced and played on "Fool for the City" by Foghat. Nick, I just spoke with Nick yesterday and told him I was going to be doing this for EMG, and we spoke for a few minutes, and he was one of the first guys that I heard as a kid, even before I played bass, that was welding rock with funk and R&B in it and doing it unbelievably well. I mean, even the opening lick in Slow Ride, it was done on a 66 jazz bass that I've had the pleasure of actually playing that bass, and the one that played on the track. But even the opening lick, when he comes into the song, it's like, that's the opening lick. But then when it goes to the verse is what really grabbed my ear, even as a kid before I was a player. And I'll attempt to play it. I hope I can execute it, because it's not the easiest thing, but it's so cool. It goes. So he plays that in the verse, and then there's that bridge section that Nick came up with himself. That's so to me, Nick was just, and that whole record, if you go back and really visit what he played on bass, even Fool for the City was just amazing stuff. It was really, it just grabbed my ear, and it made me really gravitate toward Foghat and everything that they did. Nick touring was never his thing, so he didn't last long on the road because he just didn't like touring. But boy, he is in my opinion, just a musical genius, just brilliant for the time that he came out with all that stuff. He's just brilliant. If I could be a stunt double in any band, I would have to be Michael Anthony in the day with Van Halen. That was always something I really just wanted to do. You know, even now, I'm 61 years old. I'd still love to have been able to play with Eddie. That would just be the cream of the crop for me. A technique that bass players should probably really study, in my opinion, would be the disciplinary thing, and nothing will prepare you better for that than playing traditional country music. You can laugh if you want to, but I'm telling you right now, it is the backbone of what makes a great traditional country song. It demands that you play clean, you play on time, and it's just nothing will give you the discipline that playing traditional country music will, because I've done it my whole life. And fortunately, I learned a lot of different playing styles from Jamerson and all the greats. But traditional country music like Emory Gordy Jr. and was one of them. A guy named Lightning Chance, who was the upright player that played on all the Patsy Cline stuff. When you play bass correctly in a traditional country band and you're executing the notes and the timing and everything, there just isn't anything better. I mean, to me, like I said, when you're playing traditional country, you have to play on time, you have to be thinking about what you're doing. It's not everybody, and it demands simplicity, but it sounds so good and it makes the song happen. So that would be my advice. If I could pick a drummer and a bass player to make the ultimate rhythm section, I'd probably pick Steve Gadd and probably my buddy Nathan East, because they're two players who could literally play anything, but would come together to make, the way that I think is I've made a living playing songs, so that's crucial in what I do. And those two guys understand songs. And so that would be my pick for the ultimate rhythm section, would be Nathan East and Steve Gadd.